Hey everybody, welcome to the pilot episode of Anchor Points. It is the very first episode. Hey Nick, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Can't believe we are here. We have a new show.
It's
We have a
a
new show, a new name.
brand
This
new
is
show,
crazy.
which
New channel.
having a new channel, a new show, and maybe some new hosts for a lot of you who haven't seen us. So Nick,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about what the show is. Nick, who are you?
My name is Nick Longo. What's up, everybody? So great to meet you all. We have been doing a cool little show over on the Creative Cloud and Adobe Live YouTube channel for quite a while. And now we're here creating Anchor Points. And I'm a LA-based graphic designer. I also teach at Cal State University Northridge. And we've been having a blast for how many? Has it been 2 years, 2.5 years
It's
now?
been 2.5 years. It's been a long
Putting
time that
some,
we've been streaming together, but we are
yeah,
new to Twitch, which is really cool. And we're
putting some
glad
really cool,
to have
yeah,
all of you here. Um,
putting some great content together. And how about you tell
me,
everybody a little bit about you?
little old me. My name is Andrew Hochradel. Hello, I am a brand identity designer and general creative for hire. I work on my own doing branding, doing a lot of graphic design, but I also help produce live streams for Adobe. So if you've ever watched Adobe Live over on YouTube or you watch some of the content here on Twitch, I'm behind the scenes typing and planning, helping to bring the best content to you, which is what this show is all about. This new show called Anchor Points is all about helping you level up your creative careers. And Nick, let's talk a little bit about the structure of what people can
Yeah.
expect when they tune in every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time at twitch.tv/Adobe.
Got to get used to that new one, right?
Right?
We're changing it up a little bit this time. And when we were looking at how we wanted to maybe kind of refresh or change the show, we've come up with some segments that will be a part of every episode. And think of it as your variety show every week, everything about creativity, being an artist, being a graphic designer, the world of Adobe, and everything that they offer us to help us kind of get better at our game.
Yep. And what's cool is this will be a live stream in the future. Today it is our pilot episode. This is recorded because we wanted it buttoned and perfect for you. But in the future, it will be a live show. We'll be able to see chat interactions. We'll be able to vote together and have a grand old time. At the end of each month, we'll do a design with us where you can design with us and create something and then post it where? Where would they post this, Nick?
That might be our Discord community.
That's right, in our Discord. And if you are
Yeah.
ever wanting a link to something or if you ever need more information, one of the mods will drop a link in chat for you, or you can look below us and there will be a link right there. The Discord link is popping up as I talk. I'm going to edit it in there. Andrew, great job in the future editing that animation in there. So join the Discord community and you can check out where you can find more about what we do here on Anchor Points. So Nick, I think that it's time to open the episode. Where do we want to start? Do we want to reveal something?
Ooh, I think we need to reveal maybe our keyword.
Nick, we've already said it a couple times in this episode. It is a new show on a new channel with a lot of new people in the audience.
Yeah.
Nick, what is our keyword going to be for this episode?
Can't think of anything that would be like a common thread.
That's right. Our theme this episode is new. And to give you a little bit of a rundown, here is what we're going to be covering in this episode so you can skip forward or find the content that's relevant to you. We'll be talking about what's trendworthy. Then we'll move into an artist spotlight from a new audience member from our community. We'll be doing a little bit of DIY to show you how to do some stuff on this episode. We'll be doing Counterpoints, where you get to hear Nick and I fight about the idea of, are there new ideas? Then we'll give you some expert insight about starting a new project and finish the episode with some housekeeping, which is not new, but it's new information to you.
Yes.
So I think with that, Nick, it's time for us to jump in to our first segment.
It's time to talk about what is trendworthy.
What is the new trend that we're seeing for 2023?
It's the weird, wild world of wild fonts.
I-
I don't know how else to describe this new trend. I've called it melty fonts. I've called it overly decorative. I like the abstract vibe of it. I think it's breaking down typical architectures of what a letter form is. I love anything new in that way. And I just want to make sure we talk a little bit about maybe usage of these, because as much as I do like them in certain ways, I think there's certain applications where maybe they could be a little risky. I don't know. What do you first like to call it as a category?
So in theory, if we're
great.
looking at a historical perspective, which will be a segment that we do a little bit later, is from a historical perspective, I do think that this would fall under a category called Tuscan lettering. It's something to where they kept adding and adding and adding to type. We had sans serif, we had serif, we had slab serif, and then we got into a zone called Tuscan, and it was throwing everything that you possibly could onto type to make it look crazy. And I think that we're coming back to it. I love this, and I hope it sticks around forever. My thought on type is always that I want it to be readable, but not necessarily legible. That's a quote from David Carson. So I'm fully okay with this. And if we look at the trends that we saw, we literally did a Google search for type trends 2023. Here's what it is.
It sums it all up beautifully. Wow. Okay, so here's some characteristics I see. I see a lot of thick and thin.
Yes.
In areas that we typically did not see that are typical structures of fonts, correct?
Yeah.
That's what I love.
I do too. I think that it's innovating, and this is why I like this style, and I hope it sticks around as a trend for a little while, is it's new. Again, our theme is new. It feels new. It feels fresh, but it's kind of hearkening back to the basics, right? That it's about good letter structure, but it's about exploring what you can do and what could be new with type. And even the weird kind of like blobby stuff. But then I also love this very scripty kind of addition kind of stuff that you see even in your example here. Yeah. There's a lot of kind of embellishments. I think it's interesting and new. Would this be something that you would explore, Nick, in your workflow?
I kind of have, and I've changed my whole word logo for my company, inspired by this in a lot of ways, because I like this uniqueness of the negative space can now be very unique and different. So, and the thick and thins can be there when it comes to doing something new, and it's very inspirational to see people play with fonts more than ever before. I think when I first saw this, I immediately said no to it because I'm all about legibility and branding, but we can't help but be influenced by this. I think what's going to happen is we're seeing it so exaggerated, and what's going to stick are the playfulness and the fun that I don't think we've ever seen in fonts just in a long time. And so it'll be fun to see that incorporate into these, because let's face it, branding has gotten kind of minimal and everybody uses one of 4 fonts, it seems like, for their word mark.
And that's what happens in history.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, as we see a growth of a trend and then a revolt against it. And this is the perfect example, right? We have the blanding that happened a while ago, and this is kind of the antithesis of that. This also, in theory, could be regarded as a bedonoid, would be the classification. So it's based on a designer, Bedoni, which is probably the font Bedoni. Very thin line weight versus very thick line weight. So I think a lot of what we're seeing is inspired by Bedoni.
It's like a good contrast, right, between those two. And everything contrast is the thing that attracts anybody to something visually.
Yep. And it allows you to have that variation in that kind of visual interest to create something new.
Yeah.
So if you want to grab some fonts in this style that are on trend for what we're saying is the new trend of 2023, you can go to Adobe Fonts. And this is just a type foundry. You can go to fonts.adobe.com. This is a type foundry that has really great fonts, especially things like this, right? That are just very wonky, very weird, that hit that trend. And you can go to fonts.adobe.com, and this studio is called Oh No Typeco. So you can search for Oh No Typeco and it will come up. And let's go ahead and just like open one of these. And we're just going to type in anchor points.
And look at how you could just test these out immediately. I think one of the coolest tips for any new trend is to just be curious and approach it with a sense of adventure, right? Like I don't want to ever turn anything down unless you've tried it, you know?
And what's cool,
so cool.
This is a new feature that I've seen, new again, is you can actually open up Adobe Express templates that use this font. That is so cool. And so it's integrated here. If you want to get into Adobe Express very quickly and you like this font and want to see a template of how you can use it, there are great templates here that you can toss and just start working right in Adobe Express, right? We click It's going to take us into Adobe Express, open up that template for us, and then we're on our way to creating a graphic based on this template. Okay, that's a really cool feature that like literally right now I am discovering is new.
Yeah. What would you say is a huge advantage for a designer to use this either in their job or on a project with a client? What kind of advantage do you think this trend gives them?
I think that for me, I like this trend because it is diverse and like open to a bunch of different styles, right? So we have this style, and even as we scroll through these different templates, you can see that it adapts to high fashion over on the left there. There's some tech. There's some of this like music zone. There is vintage looks. It kind of adapts to a lot of things. And because it is so stylistically weird and wonky, I think it's easy to adapt in. And so there are ways to do this custom, and we have a great friend of the show who's going to show us how to do that custom. Our friend Paul Tranny just sent out a tweet that shows how to do this. So go follow at Paul Tranny over on Twitter, and he has a full tutorial here about how to create this effect in Photoshop. Something that I see on this trend as well, Nick, is the color usage is always metallic. Every time I've seen it's metallic.
Oh, it's almost like, because it feels melty and it feels almost like molten sometimes a little bit, right?
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah. And so Paul shows you how to create that effect, how to make it this very like chrome look, and then how to render it over in Illustrator. And boom, look at that. It's a really cool, wonky kind of chrome look. So cool. And there's this final. So he combines kind of Illustrator and Photoshop there to create a really cool effect. So
you know what I was going to say is a really cool advantage to this, to anyone who is reluctant or doesn't feel like comfortable enough of doing hand lettering or custom lettering of themselves. There's an individuality on these things that I feel can really stand out when you're showing it to a client, to a boss, or whatever it might be, that is already there. And then maybe even tweak it a little bit yourself too. I think, to me, it's kind of like that open door into experimental fonts if you don't feel comfortable doing it by hand.
Yep, absolutely. And so with that, this is the trend that is on the way. But we want to go ahead and show you how to create this on your own. So it's time for DIY.
So our very first DIY is going to be showing you how to inflate some of these weird fonts and maybe even a custom font. And we're going to head on over to Andrew's page and take a look at what we're going to do something in Illustrator.
Yeah, so we're over here in Illustrator. I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can make that. What did you reference it? Melty type is how you referenced it?
I love that. Yeah, yes. Melty, kind of like it looks like it's kind of oozing a little bit.
Yes.
Love it.
So I'll show you a couple ways that you can do that. Let's just go ahead and use a font to start out with. And I'm going to use the type tool here and click to make some type. I'm going to scale that up real quick and then open my type tool panel by hitting Control T. And from there, I can, with this selected, select my font. And so I want to use that font that we had found from Ono Typeco. And so I'm going to type in, I believe it was called Hobo. Hobo. And you can see it is synced from our Creative Cloud right across. Let me type that in one more time. There we go. It is synced right here from Creative Cloud from Adobe Fonts. And all we need to do is click on it. Boom, right there. So we have this set up and looking good. And now what I'm going to do to get it even more wonky and weird is we are going to use a mesh. So I'm going to go to Object with it selected, go to Envelope Distort, and then Make with Mesh. So when you click on this, there are default settings, which we're going to use for now. And it's basically going to warp and wonky and melt our text. You hit OK, and then you can grab these anchor points in here with the Direct Selection tool, which is the little white arrow here, and start dragging these anchor points around. And it's going to make this text super weird and wonky.
We're melting, we're wonky, it looks great. Look at that.
Yes, and so you can scroll in and actually grab individual handles to these if you want to create kind of some weird wonkiness there. Or you can grab just the major anchor points and drag those around to create a weird wonky effect. So that's looking pretty cool. And the great thing about this effect is it is editable. So I can click here and then up in the left, edit contents, and let's make this say anchor points.
I love too that I think this is a good little workshop in fonts and figuring out how the architectures of type go. Because when you move something and you see it distorts it maybe too much, it's showing that you're kind of paying a lot of attention to making sure the R is legible, or that M, when you moved it, kind of messed with the M. But isn't it neat? Like, it's like a lesson in type at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. And if you need to go back to editing the actual envelope, again, you can click over here on the right. And I just want to pull this in a little bit. So we've got some weird wonky type there. Now, there's another way that we can create some weird wonky type. I'm going to go ahead and start out creating some melty type with the brush tool. So I'm going to hit B to grab brush. And from here, we're going to change to a different brush by clicking on the little menu up here and going to open brush library. We're going to go to artistic and pick calligraphic brushes.
Ooh, there's a word.
Right? Calligraphic. I literally was mentally preparing to say that word during this.
Like 5 words in advance, yes.
Right? So from here, we can simply grab one of these calligraphic brushes, and I'm going to grab this kind of horizontal one, and we're going to set to have no fill, and then set the stroke to just a black for now. I'm going to make this very thick to like a 20. And then with the brush tool selected, this is the cheat to make sure that it is going to turn out well. With the brush tool, you hit enter, and from there, you turn the smoothing all the way up. We're going to hit OK, and then click and drag, and you can see, oh, that's way too big. When we click and drag, you can see that it's giving us this very cool wonkiness without doing a whole bunch of work.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an H here. And so I'm creating one by just clicking and dragging, which that already looks really good. So I'm going to click and drag holding Alt or Option with the Shift key to bring it over to the side. We'll grab the brush tool one more time. And I'm actually going to make this a little bit thinner.
Yeah.
And we're going to do the H on the other side by doing a kind of horizontal swipe through here. And let's see if we can do this. And the smoothing will help us a lot. Actually, I liked that one. I was going to change it, but I really like how that turned out.
Okay, there's a great lesson in this whole thing too. Go with your natural form, right, of how you write. I always remember hearing people say that. It's like, that's what makes you different from anybody else's, stroke or characteristics of a letter.
Yep, absolutely. So what I'm going to do now, we are going to make this 3D. We are going to give it another kind of shine and glow. I'm going to go to Object and Expand Appearance. It's going to make all of these into shapes. And what's cool is we have a new tool called the Intertwine tool. So I'm going to change the color of these real quick.
Got to get that in there.
There we go. Those colors are hideous, but that's okay. And we are going to use the Intertwine tool. So I'm going to take these two pieces that are separate, and I want them to be together. So I'm going to go to Object, and then go to Compound Path and Make. From there, we're going to select all the things that we want to overlap and go to Object, Intertwine, and Make. It's going to give you this tool which allows us to pull forward and backward to intertwine shapes. So if I click and drag around the area that I want to go behind and I let go, it will intertwine that shape into the background. Now, we're going to do a very simple inflate in 3D. So I'm going to change the color to gray. And then we're going to go to Effect, 3D and Materials, and click on Inflate.
Could it be any easier?
Look at how cool that looks. So
great.
We did inflate, and the reason that it's looking all one is because it is the same color. So if I wanted to, I could come in here and change one of these colors. So let's just double click in here and change this to maybe a little bit of a darker gray so we get that metallic. And then with this selected, I can click on Inflate, and it's actually going to break this into separate shapes for me. Look at how cool that looks.
It's almost like it was indented by the vertical right on top.
Yes, and I'm going to drop a little black square behind this. Look at how cool that looks. And what's great is you can select this, come up to your lighting, and then maybe even change the rotation of the lighting so you can get the light looking perfect and delicious on that type.
There you go.
If you wanted to, you could explore some materials and apply them to this to create that shiny effect. But again, Paul gave you a great tutorial on this, so you can go check that out. So Nick, that is the trend of how to create the trendy, melty type. Coming up next, what do you think we should talk about? What should our next segment be?
I think it's going to be our very first ever artist spotlight. So something new we're going to do in this show is a little thing called Artist Spotlight. And for us, we want to bring in a really good friend of the program, someone we think is worthy of showing off their work. And the fact that it's just new means it follows under our topic.
It's true. And today we are looking at a new project that this person has posted that we haven't seen
even
before.
more so.
So it counts. It's new. No one be mad about it. So our community spotlight, artist spotlight highlight today is, drumroll please, it could be you. We're not gonna tell you yet. Sorry, that was a very anticlimactic because I did want to like bait you in with like some like attention grabbing. It could be you. So if you go over here to our Discord, you can see that there will be a place that you can post your portfolio to get an artist spotlight. Just let us know that you want to be artist spotlight. Drop your Behance portfolio or whatever PDF you have maybe, and you could be a artist spotlight here on Anchor Points at a future episode. Back to our drum roll. Our actual artist spotlight today is, who is it, Nick?
It's Colby Kleitz.
That's right. It's Colby. Our friend Colby does incredible, amazing work. Big friend of the program, has been here watching for a couple years, I believe. And this work is absolutely insane. But there is a new project that I do want to highlight. And Nick, this is right in your wheelhouse, or should I say brew house.
Oh, look at you. Good job.
I set that up for myself so hard. So this is Long Table Brew House. And I'm going to go ahead and read the brief. And then, Nick, we'll get your kind of takes on this because I think that you probably have more to say in this zone. So Long Table Brew House is a craft neighborhood 7-barrel brew house and 7-barrel fermentation tanks with a tap room housed in the North Park Hill neighborhood of Denver, Colorado. Ooh. In a building dating back to the 1920s. A little bit of context for branding there. Long Table Brew House is a brand that's been around for a few years now, with an established logo and list of core beers made in-house. Their goal is to expand their brand identity of their core beers over time by exploring merch and other forms of design to complement their brand identity. All right, so fantastic. Nick, as we go through this, maybe you can talk about some of the work, and I'll talk about kind of the case study overall, because those are two very separate things. So case studies are when you kind of put everything together and show a project that you've worked on. I love that you're dropping this kind of fun header and then the logo and a little bit of intro, and then just something to set the scene of where am I going in this project. So I absolutely love that you're doing that with the case study, and I'm going to give it a little appreciate right there.
Wonderful.
All right, so let's take a look at some of the merch that's coming on here. We've got some illustrations. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I think for anything like this, you want to create an experience that matches what it would be like going into this brewery or into this location. Whenever it's a destination, try to think of it that way. So it's neat to see this. This is a wonderful thing here. I think he's showing the general brand assets as far as things that they are using. Good to see that it's kind of showing it in lifestyle as well. We're big fans of not only showing your art, but then showing how would it actually live and breathe in the environment or with their customers. So this is always great to show someone wearing the actual apparel alongside with the art. I think you get a great kind of mix as far as both the appreciation for the art and then how the brand does work.
Absolutely.
So a lot of good stuff here as well.
That's gorgeous. Love the type. And again, it's great to show the side-by-side is so perfect of showing, hey, here's the work I did and here's what it looks like on a person. Like, here's what it actually looks like. If you can get context, always get context. This, very obviously 100% a mock-up. This is not like the actual shirt, but this makes me want to buy it, where this makes me want to look at it, right? So it's all about putting it in context when you're working in a kind of case study.
Oh, he's got a video there. And what's great about this too is this is showing kind of like, I'm assuming this is 100% inspired by Stranger Things, which is a blast. So it's kind of neat to show, this is great. Okay, so anyone wanting to hire you and it comes to look at your website, you put in a little process thing like this and look at how cool he overlaid the inspiration or the image of the nail and then showed how he actually drew it from hand. People will soak this stuff up. I think it's such a great thing to show in your capabilities for sure.
What a great kind of bonus for a case study to be able to show. And then we've got the stickers. Man, this is a lot of really Really great work. And I love that you've adapted elements that are already existing into something new.
Yes.
This is gorgeous using the intertwine tool, I hope.
Otherwise, he spent a lot of time on that.
Little plug there. Yep. This was published December 25th. So I'm not fully confident it was out. The intertwine tool is out. Hopefully you use the intertwine tool. And this is the stuff that I love to see at the end of a case study, is just how it's affected the product or the business, right?
Or the community,
Or
right?
the community. Yeah. The morale looks super high here. People are wearing the merch, looking like they're having fun, they're drinking beer, and those are the things that you want, right? It's great that it's like, look at the work I did, the project, but it's even better when you can show, here's the difference that I made, which I think is great. So with that,
I'd love to know if our viewers, if a case study is new to them. Have you seen case studies like this? And is this something new? Is this something you're striving for? We really we'll push this a lot throughout most of our future episodes for sure. But notice it was a perfect little capture of a chapter in his work. You know, I like to think of these as chapters in your book. And what a great way to put it all together, ending with a fantastic, exciting, and community-driven image. It's awesome.
It's great. That was our first community spotlight. Again, if you want to be highlighted as an artist or a designer, or even if you're doing video, whatever you are doing, if you want to be highlighted, go ahead, join the Discord, drop it in our channel for Anchor Points, and let us know. And with that, we're going to keep this show moving right along, and it's time for Nick and I to fight. This will be all of your favorite segment every time we do it. This is Anchor Points, but Nick, what time is it?
It's Counterpoints time.
This is a new segment called Counterpoints. And yes, the name of the show is Anchor Points because Nick and I get along so well and help bring you all the information. But sometimes we fight about things, and we want to get your perspectives on this. So as we talk, you can share your perspectives in Discord. Nick, what is the topic of today's Counterpoints?
Are there any new ideas?
Yes,
I think we ask this every time we start a new project, right? Like, how many times have you heard that? There's no new ideas. There's just different ways of putting things together that like already exist, right?
Yes. So let's talk about new. This is a hot topic that's been all over design, Twitter, and social media. Is this project for who knows who is the first? Nick, what are your thoughts? Give us a rundown of what's happening with this situation.
Yeah, so Bolt was the recent one there on the top right that just came out, made a big splash. It made it to a lot of design blogs. A lot of people were kind of commenting how great this looked. Very unique how they have this reversed out lightning bolt between the L and the T, correct? So we were all kind of looking at this, and then it really kind of became this newsworthy thing where people went, well, look at the Volt logo, look at the Buzzer logo, look at Voltage. All of these other ones came out that previously had the same idea. And then also black sans serif font over a yellow background. Was this coincidence, or was this just by, complete influence?
Yep.
And that's what made us thought this would be a good thing to talk about, because we had a difference of opinion in kind of talking about it at first.
Yeah. So Nick, what is your opinion on this idea of, are there new ideas in creativity in general? And then what's kind of your take on all of these looking so similar? What's your thought?
Yes. I kind of believe there really are no new ideas sometimes. It's like, it is the mixture, the combination, the chemistry of things that we have as tools that we can put together. So chances are, even if you've never seen something, you could create something that I think could look awfully similar to something that already exists, and you never, ever had any influence by it whatsoever. So on this particular project, what I thought was, hey, it worked. Bolt is the name of the company. It's not like they used the lightning icon kind of without any kind of rationale. They actually had something in there. And of course, we were going to find something that was close to it, but I still appreciated it because I think before the controversy, it made quite a splash. It had a very bold kind of entrance into this. And I thought I gave it a pass. I thought it was very cool.
Yep.
How about you?
Here's my take. And I kind of agree with you. But I think like as creatives, our job is to make new ideas. And so I think that there are things like this, right, that are the cognitive kind of crossovers that we have. All of these are technically, I think, the right answers, right? That it's like, it's electricity, so it's going to be yellow, and like, let's try to have some kind of like harsh line in it. Like all of these semiotics of how we communicate visually are there. I think as creatives, I'd love to see us explore and try to come up with new ideas. I agree that there are no new ideas, right? That everything has been done, but being able to adapt them into something new and kind of take those pieces and rearrange them into a new idea is kind of what we should strive for. And that's how we create those like quasi new ideas. And so I think a lot of these fall into that, which I think is where I agree with you, that I think a lot of these are that quasi new idea. But I would have loved to see things like this that you see again and again and again, that you can say like, oh, there are no new ideas. A million people have done it. Try to be aware of that and then figure out, how can I make that new idea? How can I kind of twist it on my own?
So, but another point, are we supposed to look at every logo or brand or art that has a arrow to project momentum and movement, but they've incorporated it into the negative space, a la FedEx logo? Are we supposed to look at all those now and say like, oh, you all copied each other? You know what I mean? Like, so
that's why I think I'm being probably idealistic in like, oh, we should like try to, but in reality, it's like, there's like so many logos of a lot of these things. It's like community, electricity, water, like a lot of common threads that it's all going to be like ripples and splashes. And so I think in my brain, I'm like, if you know that nothing is new with that project, try to come up with something new, knowing at
least a layer,
what is the answer, knowing what is the thing that has happened before. How can we twist that to create something new? So
because look at the social media icons. When it gets that abbreviated, that's where they lose individuality.
Absolutely. Yep. And then they aren't new, right? That it's a new big case study, but then you boil it down to that social media icon. It's not new. So this is a little bit of a counterpoint, right? We can kind of go back and forth on this, but there's something that we do agree on that is our counterpoint against kind of doing this. Don't do this is our counterpoint. And that is blatantly copy something. And Nick, we got a bunch of examples here.
Oh, gosh. If you haven't seen the Han Solo Star Wars posters that came out promotional, right there in the middle, you'll see the Solo, the Lando. That was put out, everyone loved it, and then someone posted those album covers to the right of them on Twitter and was like, wait a minute, these are blatant copies of, like, literally, look at the background with the wrinkles, the color, the image, and the photography coming through the font. You could not have put this out there and thought it would never be found.
Yeah,
right.
And the hard thing with this is, if we're talking about the question of, are there new ideas? There aren't new ideas, but these are the same idea. I think that's the big separator for me is yes, there are no new ideas. Everything has been done before, but we can make something new by taking a twist or something that is said by you. You have a unique perspective as a creative. Put your own twist on it and try to make it a little more new. These are not new. They are the same. That's kind of rough. It's kind of rough. And you can see down even in the bottom left, I think that the place you see this, Nick, okay, I'm going to ask you a question, then I'll give you the answer I'm thinking of. See if you can get it. What is the place that you think you see this the most, of just straight taking an idea, not trying to make it new, of trying to make it the same?
Ooh, you mean like what industry or what area?
What industry?
Tech? No.
Okay. I think this might be a thing that I'm just realizing now. Here's my thought. Discount foods or like store brands of things, right? That it's like, you get a CVS and it's like Tylenol, and then it's like generic Tylenol, but it's the same colors. It's the same with Target's like Up and Up or whatever, is like, it's not a new idea. It's the same thing you're seeing next to it, but buy this one instead. With all that said, what is our kind of conclusion to these counterpoints, Nick?
I would say use for influence, use for inspiration. But if you're going to blatantly copy something very similar to the top right with Malika Farvey's beautiful thing that she did for a major motion picture, Birdman, I believe it was, and then someone just making a blatant copy of it, like and terribly done, to be honest with you. Like,
True.
What are you thinking? Like, we all know it. We all see this. So use it for inspiration and then close that off, turn it off, go to your blank board and create.
Absolutely. But With that said, this is not something that is new, right? If our trend is new, this is not new. If we look back into history, and this is why I think I give it some kind of
Yeah.
leverage to be like, yeah, things are going to look the same, right? We have trends. We just talked about the like drippy type trend. If we look back in history, this is the Rococo era, and we had this kind of S curve and C curve and lots of florals, right? And artists started working on that. And then it started being everywhere, right? And you can't say like, oh, people are just taking that element and throwing it all the things, right? This is the lightning bolt in the buzzer logo, right? That is the S and C curves. That's what's happening here.
Yeah.
But it has become a trend. It's grown. And so at a certain point, it kind of can turn into something else and become something new, become a trend. And then people will revolt against it and come up with something that's different. After this, we had a lot of styles of like distigial, which is very like modular and kind of a revolt against it, which again, people started copying and doing all across the board. So I think that's kind of just the natural flow of things and how things work. So those are our counterpoints. And I think that we're going to keep things moving. And our theme is new. Nick,
Yes.
as creatives, I think we work on a lot of new projects. And so what's the next segment that we're going to be going to?
We're going to help you guys start a whole new project. Our next newest segment is called Expert Insight. And what we want to do is kind of take everything that both Andrew and I have experienced in our own solo careers as designers, as art directors, and even as instructors, and kind of give you guys some tips and step-by-step information on big topics that we think creatives are dealing with or struggling with at this moment. So our first one is all about starting a new project.
Yes.
There's so many good tips in this, right?
Nick and I have done a lot of new projects. I have a new project that has been starting as a new project for 2 years now.
That's exactly right.
If we're talking about expert insight, I'm an expert on starting new projects. So we're going to talk you through some advice to start that new project from our experience. And Nick, I'm sure you start new projects all the time, right?
Yeah, I'd say almost every other week there's a new endeavor, something brand new, either with an existing client or a new client, or let's say something we're working on together for our show, something I'm doing in class. I love them and I hate them, because it's kind of like sometimes you're in the perfect zone to love something and start something. Sometimes it's a little like, wow, it's chaos. I can't add anything else. So let's hope these help you out a little bit in how you're going to start. The first one is basically understanding the subject matter of whatever this is going to be. And I've taken really good influence from folks that I know. When they start a new project, they dive so deep into the industry and do their own research, not just in like where they want this project to go, but let's say you're doing your first project and it might just be in like the tea kind of industry and you know nothing about teas or anything like that. You're the coffee drinker. Dive deep into it. Find out a little bit more about the origins and what makes it work. I think you get some really good stuff there to enhance and influence the project along the way.
Yep. And I think just listening, the biggest part of starting a new project to me, that number one is just listening. Just hear what they have to say, understand their business, and hear maybe themes, because those themes can be brought back up if you have an idea to defend that idea, right? If you're like, I think it all needs to be green, and they're like, we want it to be blue. And you're like, well, when we talked initially and I was just understanding and listening to you, you talked a lot about things wanting to be relaxing, and using green is the most relaxing color to the eye. So I think that if we are trying to do relaxing, we should use green. So it gives you some ammo to kind of start out, but you need to collect that when you start the new project. All right. Second thing that I think that we'd recommend, define like where you are going with the client, and not for the client, with the client. What is the win of this project? And Nick, how do you define that when you're working on a new project?
Just had one yesterday, and brand new first conversation in what they needed. It was a little bit all over the place. And I literally had to ask, let's hold on, go back to the beginning. Can we define what the project goal is? What expectation? Where do we move the needle with what I'm going to make or create for you? And we determined it so specifically to the point of they're doing a new board game, very similar to like Dungeons and Dragons, and it doesn't have to be reality. It's only concept, and it's going to be to persuade people to get into it on a Kickstarter. So that tells me something totally different as far as what my deliverable is going to be, rather than create the box, know what has to happen for print. This is going to be conceptual, hero shots, really selling it. So now I know that's a big difference in my goal. And also keep in mind, having that set kind of destination for any project means it's a way when we get off the rails, it helps us get back on because we can go right back to that. And the team has to agree on that because that's what you basically came to the decision at the beginning.
Yep. And speaking of deliverables, it is so important to define those at the beginning of a new project because there's something called scope creep. And Nick, what is scope creep when you're working on a project?
Creep. Oh, that's when, Andrew, I love that logo you just did. Can we do one for the 40th anniversary of our company as well? And you can include that in with the current budget that we did, right?
Yeah, and I think we want to put on some merch too. And so can we do some like mock-ups of merch on that as well? That'd be great. So scope creep is basically when things keep getting added on. And again, our theme is new. When there is new work on top of new work. So when you are starting a new project, define what you are going to do and don't do more than that. Scope creep is very real and it turns into a freaking nightmare. So don't let that happen. Okay, Nick, when we're talking about bringing on a new project, we're talking about listening, right? That was one of our first things.
Yes.
Who are we listening to? This is a huge important thing to understand in a new project.
We have to listen to the stakeholders that we've identified. Every project, every job could be totally different in this. So you got to learn how to be a little bit flexible in understanding who is the stakeholder, who might be the coordinator, who might just be the person in between doing the communication. It's really important to understand who they are because they're going to approve, one, that overall goal, but second, the kind of approach and how you're going to go out this, maybe even the timeline. And most importantly, it's probably the budget, right? They're the ones that are going to agree on what that price is.
Yep, absolutely. And this is something that I do in projects is I communicate with one person and that one person gives me feedback from maximum 5 people. So any meeting that I have on a new project, the maximum amount of people is 5. And I communicate that very clearly up front to say only these 5 people have input and that input is going to be coming from one person to me because I can't manage input from 10 different people who all have opinions. I need someone that is going to synthesize that for me on behalf of the business or the client. And then we can work together to communicate and identify who those stakeholders are and whose opinions and kind of outlooks on the projects really, really matter. And once we start working on this new project, right? The project is launched, the newness of it is starting to wear off, but how do we make sure that the new project eventually turns into the old projects? That's really the goal.
Yes. We want to put that off and into that like done category. The best way you can kind of continue that momentum is to create what we like to call a resource plan. This could be everything from what resources you need. Maybe it's hours, maybe it's the amount of research, whatever it might be. How you categorize that at the beginning helps you keep track of, are you on time? Are you on budget? Are you on plan with these things? And it's a great way to do that. I've been doing that a lot with how many hours I think this is going to be. And particularly when an estimate is based on that, I need to be the person that's keeping track on that and making sure I haven't gone too far above or too far below whatever that resource plan is.
Yep. And I think that the last point of starting a new project is to account for the like honeymoon phase of that new project. So as you are starting the new project, the client is feeling new about it much longer than you are, right? That as the creative, the newness for me wears off really quickly, but I think that the newness for the client lingers on a lot. And so when you're going through having a kickoff meeting to understand and listen to them, that's new and fun and interesting. And then you're doing budgets, right? And that's like, okay, cool. This is a new thing. We're getting started. We're signing contracts here. You do a project timeline. Oh, that's new. All right, here we go. Let's get it done. But you need to be accounting for all of this stuff that's going to happen after that new honeymoon phase. And that is all the organizational things, right? Of just getting things in line. And I think as I kick off a new project, I'm thinking, what is the step beyond the newness that people won't be excited about that I need to be accounting for now? Like, what do I need to make new so that once I get there, it's not new because I won't have time for new things once I'm into this. How do you plan that out, Nick, when you're working with a client?
I will have organized process things in place already from previous jobs. They might be blank templates. They might be discovery decks that are ready to be updated and changed very quickly. That way I'm not where I get into the off the, the honeymoon trail and kind of get a little bit like, oh man, this is not new anymore, is when I have to go and recreate something or do something and I feel like it's pulling me backwards in time or my timeline. So all of the things you can do to propel and make work easier, that's templates and things like that, make your life so much easier. You actually look forward to that next step rather than want to go backwards.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's it for new projects. That is our expert advice to you when you're starting a new project. A whole bunch of takeaways there. If you learned something, go ahead, put it in our Discord. Let us know what you learned, or if you have suggestions for kicking off new projects. You're starting a new school year, you're starting something new for one of your classes. Let us know what advice you have, because you can be an expert as well. You can be one of our experts giving their insight. And so we want to go ahead and tell you a little bit about what's coming up, a little bit about the show, a little bit about they're just announcements. I don't have any easy transition for this. We're about to make announcements, and it's time for housekeeping. All right, it's time for some housekeeping. I know a lot of you probably we're doing housekeeping, and you saw the fun animation. You're like, I'm done. So if you're still here, thanks for watching. And hopefully if you're here, you're going to come back. Nick, give them the quick rundown. When can they come back, and when can they join us for a live version of what we're seeing here today?
We can't wait to see you guys every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. It's on twitch.tv/Adobe. And again, you saw our format, you saw our sections. We'd love to hear from you guys too. Let us know more about what you want to see. That's our schedule.
Yeah. So let us know what you want to see, and you can post that in our Discord. Right down here, there will be a link that will pop up for Discord. Our mod will also drop it in chat. Go ahead, scroll down to that Anchor Points channel, and you can let us know what you want to see here on the show. So again, every Wednesday, we will be doing a new episode, and we will have a new theme. So if you have a suggestion for a theme, magic secret word for an episode, let us know, and we will do an entire episode based on that word. Something else that I do want to mention is the last show of the month every month. We'll be doing a design with us. And Nick, what are we doing during a design with us?
That's going to be us right on the boards, playing around with some great new features, maybe some good design trends, something we might be working on. That would be kind of fun to do as well, right?
Yep. Yeah. And of course, you're welcome to work with us during those streams. So join us the last stream of each month for a design with us Anchor Points. And again, the ways that you can get involved. You can check out Adobe Live over on YouTube. You can follow Adobe Live over on Instagram. And I'm talking fast, but I'm going to try to animate in all the things under here. Hopefully they're popping up. And you can join us again on Discord. So this has been so much fun. Pilot episode. Next week we're back live. Nick,
in the books,
close us out with some great advice to our friends on Twitch watching this who hopefully have been hanging out with us.
Oh, hopefully you've got some work that you want to share with us. So don't forget to submit into that artist spotlight. We'd love to share your work with others. This is a community. We want to get you guys to know each other in and outside of this show.
Yep, absolutely. And Nick, where can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, you can find me at Longo Designs on Instagram, Nick Longo on LinkedIn, and longodesigns.com is my website. How about you, Andrew?
I am hoch.co everywhere. You can go to hoch.co or on social media, hoch.dotco, all letters, no punctuation. So go check those out, and we will see you next week for another episode of Anchor Points here on Twitch. Bye.
Bye, guys.